3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Well, this is Sonic Chrono Adventure, a fan game released in 2013, which combines the two titans, Metroidvanias and Sonic the Hedgehog's standard gameplay formula. It's quite unique in that regard, not an awful lot like it, but it's unique in the best possible way in that it's a really nice blend of various genres and also a lot of 16-bit classics that you know and love, such as Kirby Superstar, Gunstar Heroes, a lot of 16-bit RPGs as well. It all combines into this one lovely package. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into the first proper level coming up right here. This is your very standard Sonic fare in terms of you're going left to right, you're going speedy. It's everything you want to see from a Sonic fan game and just a Sonic game in general. But we'll be seeing a lot more different variations on level design, direction, and a lot of plot points, because that's what this game is all about. It's mainly about the story, and as you can imagine, it's a speed run. We're going to be skipping past the grand majority of all that sort of stuff. So we'll be making mincemeat out of what is otherwise somewhat a pretty well held together game. Certainly a beloved game, but in the glitch department there is a lot here which we are going to be doing our best to break wide open. That giant motor bug there you might have seen I just ran straight through. That's because if you hit them, you bounce straight off them. You can imagine that's very slow. As you can see there, I just did it by accident. So we try and run through those enemies and similar sorts where possible, just because otherwise it's way too slow. You need a time save wherever you can get it in this game, and even just little bits like that go a long way, because there are also some major things that can go wrong. So any little time saves do really seem to stack up, so I'll be doing my best to take advantage of such situations throughout the run. Anyway, we're at the end of this level here, and we're about to get into what is a bit of a staple for Metroidvania games, and that is collectible items. So this isn't as much to do with power-ups as it is actual items. So we have a little currency known as silver rings, and we'll be finding these throughout the game, and they'll let us buy various classic Sonic power-ups, such as rings, as you can see here, and some shields as well. So we'll be using the flame shield, as you saw there. We took it since we get a free item first of all. The flame shield will be useful for a sequence break that will be coming up in about 5-10 minutes time. So we'll take that one instead of our backup rings, and we'll continue onwards. And here we are, going right to left in a Sonic game. It's a sin in any other title, but in this game it's a necessary evil, because a big part, as you can imagine, from the Metroidvania fusion going on here, there's a lot of backtracking and going all the way around a massive map system in order to get to where we need to be. So it's absolutely necessary, therefore, that we can go in all directions when we need to. 2D games, we can't go forwards and backwards, but, well, this is the effect here. This one's also a really fun one. Another standard classic Sonic level otherwise, aside from the shocking, I guess, situation going on with the level layout. But yeah, not really an awful lot. You're going to see me try and optimize some bits, but otherwise it's a little bit of a tricky one in the sense of it can be quite easy to just get sniped out of anywhere. So I'll do some bits like jumping up ramps, jumping at optimal heights into those bouncy pads, and I'll also take a little, I say a little, it's a huge jump here to skip a lot of a section down there. We'll run our way into the left, slow down a little bit just to make the transition a bit smoother, and then here we are in Wild Wade Zone North 2, and we're about to run into what is another one of the game's big mechanics, at least plot-wise, but certainly it changes the course of gameplay as well. So we're about to run into EGATS, a recurring enemy in the Sonic Before and After the Sequel series. The ATS stands for, of course, After the Sequel, so he's back from that game, and he'll be causing havoc throughout. Not our main enemy, but certainly someone we got to keep an eye on. That little symbol you can see in the corner there, or in the middle there, the milk bottle looking thing, that is our map, and we are currently falling into the past. It's a very Chrono Trigger of something like Live Alive in terms of how it handles time travel and weaving it into the plot. It's a very strange one in that regard, so we're going to be going backwards and forwards a lot. Currently, it's only dictated by the game. It will force us to time travel, but eventually we will gain access to freely time travel. But for now, we're forced to go here through Wild Winter, which can be a very tricky stage to optimize. There's a lot of strange jumps, and getting just the right amount of speed and the right angles into some things in order to gain the most speed possible and the most height in some instances So we're going to try that. I'm going to try and jump up here onto this ledge because it makes it just a little bit faster, but there is unfortunately a momentum bug in this game that happens. When you spin dash into walls, you will completely lose all momentum, and sometimes it can even trap you effectively in an invisible wall, meaning you can't move, and this happens quite a lot with spin dashing. So you will see me peel outing a lot instead throughout the course of these levels, and that's simply because it's a way safer option to avoid getting completely stuck and therefore losing time. There are ways to negotiate yourself out with Sonic, but really a power-up we get later on not only has it worse, but is also a little bit better at getting out of those sticky situations. This is Rodalia. This is effectively our Navi equivalent for the game, so we'll be hearing from her a little bit here and there, but otherwise it's worth introducing her now because she's an important pivotal part of progression, but we, as speedrunners, of course, don't like the standard fare of progression, so we won't be seeing her all too much, but she'll make some random appearances here and there. So this is Force Fortress Zone, and this is Platform Cycles, the level, but it's also where we get our first power-up, so it's a very important stage to come to, and in fact, it's required for basically any sort of progression in this game, including getting back into the present, which we'll be doing after this. But for now, there'll be some damage boosting here and there as I try and get onto, say, the right platform cycles, or just try and get up a little bit quicker, but there's a lot of risk-reward involved in how Sonic's jump height works and how you actually get your way onto the platforms, so for the sake of marathon safety, I'm going to be playing this very quite tame, but if there's some instances where damage boosting would really help me, then you'll see some cool strats going on as well, but otherwise, it's a pretty standard level. So we're also about to see a lot of spikes here. I will definitely be damage boosting off these because it is so much quicker than going through the stages normally. So there'll be a lot of sections in this game, as you already saw from the motor bugs, where I will be taking intentional damage. Sometimes not intentional, but it's beneficial. But a lot of the times I will intentionally, say, jump off spikes or run straight through enemies just to save that little bit of precious time and get me onto cycles in some cases. So we're pretty much at our first power-up here, and for those of you familiar with the Sonic Before and After the Sequel series, you might know a game called Sonic Before the Sequel Aftermath. It's a tech demo for this game, and it features two of the power-ups we're about to see in this one. This is the first one, this is the sword, and it really does what it says on the tin. You use it to slash, but really all it ends up getting used for in official terms is slashing down these walls you see here. So there'll be a couple more instances of this in the early game, but otherwise this item is mainly just to introduce the mechanic of item switching or power-up switching to you, and we really won't see it all too much throughout the rest of the game. So you'll see an example of how progression with the sword is handled very momentarily, because you might recall a little section that we encountered at the start of the level. If not, here it is. Look, we couldn't get through here earlier. Now we got a sword, we can make our way through to the end of the level. But yeah, not too much more to say about this one, really, now that we got the sword. There's a few more instances where it comes in handy, but really it does very limited things in the game, except for a couple glitches, but in terms of its intended uses, it's just to set you up with the new power-up system, which we've seen right here. So I'm going to take these springs to victory, and that's pretty much all there is left to the level. So in a second, we'll be forced into a cutscene, which does end up taking quite a bit of time to start, but once that's done, we'll be back in the present and ready for our first proper glitch of the run. So this is Jerem, a character pivotal to the past equivalent of the story here. And we'll be seeing him a lot more throughout, and even get to play as him a little bit later on. But for now, we're just going to skip past all his dialogue, as we are going to do with every bit of dialogue and every cutscene we possibly can. That's just how it's going to go. Anyways, back we are in the present here, and this is Fused Fortress Zone, and we are about to use the Flame Shield to get our way through a couple of cutscene triggers. So, oh, that is the wrong button. So, we are going to take this, and we're going to take it over to the left-hand side of the level. Now, oh, sorry, the right-hand side of the level. Now, you're definitely meant to go left to West City, where you will get introduced to Eggman and the game's past villain as well. Eggman's in the present, the other one's in the past. The only way the game knows how to actually handle this is there are 3 cutscene triggers which say, hey, don't go over here, you're meant to go to the left. If you completely ignore them, that's all there is to it. That was really slow, woo. That's all there is to it, and you can go all the way over to the right, completely skipping a couple of areas, including the level West City, which there is a long, not boss fight, but certainly boss sequence, where you have to climb up to Eggman. Luckily, we get around that one, and yeah, that's actually a level completely cut from the run as a result of a reroute later in the game as well. Oh my goodness, this is not going to plan. Oh well, this happens sometimes with the stage. Momentum is not always as friendly as you think. Especially with these fans, you can see how slow they are, so you really want to get up to the top or the bottom, depending on which direction you want to go, in order to, well, get the maximum height or lack of it, I guess, so you really don't have to deal with these for too long. Unfortunately, this level's not been that forgiving in that regard, so we're making the best of what is seemingly a bad situation right now, but we're nearly out of here anyway. And we'll be getting on to already some backtracking. But yeah, this level's great. It's one of the first major sequence breaks in the run, but fear not, there are plenty more to come. This run has a lot of making the most of its very vertical and very windy level design, because hey, it's a Metroidvania. There's sections you're meant to go fast, sections you're meant to go slow. That's how it goes, but a lot of the initial and mid-game run is traversing these tricky levels, and all sprung throughout are various instances where we go, no, we don't want to deal with this, and we turn the run into whatever it is we want it to be. So we got a gimmicky level coming up now, but this is one of the... I guess you can always lump these levels into a similar category, in that they're pretty standard classic Sonic levels, but each one of them has something different to differentiate them. I'll point them out when we see them throughout the game, but this one's fairly simple. You've got a lot of springs, you've got a very windy up, down, left, right level that you've got to deal with, so we'll do what we like, where we can, but yeah, there's not a lot we can really do to speed this up too much, so it's just playing for it optimally, making sure you try not to fall onto the bottom paths, because, well, that is something that can definitely happen, as you might see throughout the level. That's something that happens a lot in these stages as well, is much like your standard classic Sonic game, there is a lot of weirdness going on with path swapping and falling onto bottom and top paths, so for the most part, it's really just finding where you are, making the best of it, and having a good time with it. But yeah, it's a bit of improvising as well, because like in those games, there is a lot of things you should be doing, a lot of paths you should be taking, but it's not always possible. So there's a lot of improvisation going on in this game. Nearly at the end here, though, we're just going to take a few more springs, and then we shall be victorious and making our way out of the level and into the most obvious example case of time travel you've ever seen. So this is Old Castle Zone, and this is the level where we unlock the ability to freely travel through time. Now, although we are forced to do this in various places, you can come here and leisurely switch at your will. So we're going to have a cutscene to introduce this with Rodalia. Here's our space-time rift that EGATS has left open for us, and we can mess with the scripted cutscene by jumping into it, and off Sonic goes into the stratosphere. His home planet needed him and all that. And yeah, it's so obvious because look, it's Newcastle. And now we're going to go back to the left now that we're back here in the past. I missed the save point, that's fine. And we're going to be in another similar stage, Tube Trial Zone. And this is one of my favourite levels in the run, but only once we unlock the final power-up of the game. So when we do that, I'll be pointing it out. It's still a great stage before then, but it gets cracked wide open, as does the game as a whole, thanks to a certain power-up. But really, the way the game progresses as of right now is we're on our way to go and trigger the right story points to get the third power-up, and then we'll be in the mid-game already, is how I kind of refer to it, which is a lot of levels, not much progression in terms of getting more power-ups, in terms of progressing the list of like almost key checkpoints in the game we need to hit before we can go and do the endgame sequences, or really even get the other power-ups we need to finish the game. So they all kind of blend into one, and we're about to really reach that area once we get our third power-up of the game. But for right now, we're just on our way to get the right story events to happen, which will allow us to do some cool things in the present. So that's nearly happening, but that's about to be a case of backtracking momentarily. So we'll be making our way over to what should be a Wild Winter now, as far as I'm aware, right? If I remember correctly. Yes, it is. So we're going to go back through Wild Winter. This time we'll have a bit of a shortcut on our side, thankfully. But we didn't have this last time, but we'll make it a bit quicker going back through this time. We need to go into Wild Winter 2 to trigger what is, once again, not quite a boss fight, but certainly an encounter with a boss, and that will progressed the game enough to where we'll be able to do the sequence required for the third power-up. But for now, you'll see we're on a completely different path here, a staple of the Metroidvania genre. You unlock the power-up, therefore you can go new ways, which you weren't able to when you went to this area before. And this game is chock full of such things. So we'll be making the best of what we can. We'll be taking the shortest routes possible, and we'll be using those power-ups the second we can to access the new areas critical for progression. So as you can see, we are forced into a cutscene here with Jerem. Now the nice thing about these scripted cutscenes, as you can see, I can actually turn around in them, and this is one of the ones where it's beneficial, because you can immediately start running the second the cutscene finishes, as a result of being quite rude and facing away from Jerem and the like. So I'm not going to be spin dashing or peel outing for much here, because there is these on-ground enemies, as you can see here. Same deal with the motor bugs. It is way quicker to run straight through them as opposed to trying to negotiate with them. I'm going to take a ring here for the boss fight, because it effectively cooks itself, but it's always handy to have a ring about just in case you screw anything up. It's better to be safe than sorry in these marathon contexts and all that. So this takes about 45 seconds, I'd say, to damage itself, at which point Jerem will come and rescue us, and it will be taken back to the present, where the real fun begins. We'll see a brand new area, and it's always one of people's favourites, both in terms of the gimmick and, I think most importantly, the music that it plays. It always gets a reaction in these sorts of events, so we'll be seeing that now. So we'll be going back to Wild Wave North 2, which effectively becomes a little bit of a hub for this early game, because you've already seen we've gone through it a number of times. There's a number of directions we can go through it, which will take us to plot important events. We're back here, and now there is a brand new route that's opened up. You might recall there was on the ground a spring that we couldn't access before. Well, it is now perfectly accessible. We can come up and left here to go to Eggman's Fun Fair. Just what is he cooking up in the background there? That's not quite looking like Eggman Land, but it is looking a little bit suspicious, a little bit crafty, so it's up to us to go and stop it. So we got a short little level, barely even a level before then, just to get us into Eggman's Carnival, and then we'll be here and traversing what is one of the more fun stages to play in this game casually. The big idea here is you get a lot of anti-gravity, both through the blue balloons, which you can bounce off just with your normal speed as Sonic, and you get some yellow ones, which give you static energy, along with a couple of, I don't know what you'd call them, I guess, static generators. These things here, the coils, they look like coils. I'm going with coils, right on the spot. So we're going to want to take this first set here, and this will give us a slight power-up increase for a power-up we get later in the game. It's not an awful lot, but it does help with what is a slightly more tricky power-up to use. It doesn't get used much as a result of a timing meter that's unfortunately attached to it. But now that we got that, we're going to try and take the high path where possible, because it is generally speedier. It is a classic game after all. So we'll be doing our best to stay on the high path, or otherwise make the best of what could turn into a sticky situation. So I'm going to continue grabbing all these balloons. Once again, this gimmick is so much fun. One of my absolute favourites in the game. And we're going to take advantage of, well, circle physics / sphere physics, which happen in this game. As you can see, if I ran it into that sphere at a certain angle, I actually negated the need to run all the way up and around it. I just gained enough speed. And that's something that happens quite a bit throughout the run as well. And it's the most handy to be able to get such things in situations like that, to really skip having to gain speed and run the right way around them. So this is a scripted cutscene here. As with all scripted cutscenes, you can jump and move and everything. So we can actually jump over a plot critical item there. That feather's required in canon-wise to actually, as far as I know, time travel on your own. And yeah, we just skipped it. You can jump straight over it, and the game just treats it as if you have it for the rest of the game. It's not an actual physical in-game item, but it's something that appears quite a lot in all of the scripted cutscenes. So it's really funny just to be able to go straight over it and yeah, make little goofy glitches like that. Yet another use of sphere physics there, just because we really don't like going slow, and if we can go fast and avoid having to run all the way up that, then I will absolutely do so. About to run into the third power-up of the game here, and this is also another reoccurring power-up from Sonic 4 The Sequel Aftermath. These are the hover boots. So shout-outs to the Kirby Jet power-up. If you've ever played that, it's basically the same thing. You can tap the X button on your keyboard to get a little bit of speed, or you can hold it up or you can hold it and you can get a really high boost here like you saw there. You can do this both vertically and horizontally, and you think therefore this would be a super useful item, but unfortunately there's a couple things hindering it. One is Sonic's ground speed gets really reduced. Only if you manually build up speed can you keep it. Otherwise his general if you run from a standstill, basically Sonic's ground speed will be significantly reduced. Unfortunately, you have to build it manually through slopes and the like. Aside from that, there is also the momentum glitch does apply to these boots, unfortunately, so it's really easy to get stuck in invisible walls against the wall. If you ever see me just completely stood still against the wall, no, I haven't stopped, no, my controller hasn't died. It unfortunately means that I flew too close to the sun, and Sonic's stuck, and I have to try and navigate his way out of the invis wall. It really sucks. It's something that makes these really cumbersome to use between those two things. So we use them when necessary to nab just that little bit extra height, but yeah, it's unfortunate that they're not perhaps quite as handy as they could be. But certainly in this early game, before we get a similar item that does effectively the same thing, I've never seen him cook himself like that. What? Okay, so we're going to switch back to the hover boots here, charge up a full hover, and then when the screen transition happens, we can release all that speed straight away and not have to charge it up here. So we're just going to use them to zip to the end of this level, and yet again, there will be another forced time travel sequence momentarily. But for now, I'm just going to make my way through this twisty, windy level, and we'll be at the end, and I'll show you a cool cutscene glitch if I can, which always makes everyone smile in these marathons, myself included. It is completely bonkers. It just it looks so silly, and sometimes the silliness in this game is really what makes it. Just these small little bugs you get in the Sonic Worlds engine that carry over to this game are great. So we're nearly there, and it's coming up here. There we go. You can stand in midair during this cutscene if you zip into it using the hover boots. The game never checks and puts you back on the ground, which is weird because it does do that in future cutscenes. Not this one, though. You saw that feather there that we skipped over. Yep, so we're about to use it to get into yet another time travel sequence into what is probably my least favourite level of the run, honestly. Misty Maze is a perfectly fine type of level for a Metroidvania in that it is very traditionally a Metroidvania. It's once you fall off a path, you can't get back up. You have to go back to the beginning and try again to get to that path. There's a lot of different ways to therefore exit the level. It's very stop-starty. It's not designed for speed in the slightest. So I'm going to take this red spring here, and that will get me onto the top path instantly. And now I've got to try my best to not run into all these ghosts, which slow you straight down. I've got to get rid of this speed... Oh, not speed wall. What am I talking about? I've got to get rid of this sword wall. And then, as long as I was hoping I wouldn't hit that, but oh well, at least it did keep me on the top path. There we go, I'm pretty much here and on the home stretch. But yeah, it's just a level where you can see it's super easy to run into walls and slow down way more than you'd like. It's just a very difficult level to traverse from a speedrun perspective. So it's effectively making the best of a bad thing, which is something you hear a lot in this game. It's got very Sonic CD-esque level design, which I actually love as a speedrunner because Sonic CD was one of the games where I started, along with Sonic 4 the sequel Aftermath, which I mentioned is effectively the same thing, just a tech demo. And then this. So I have a lot of experience already with running Sonic Metroidvanias, so I don't mind too much, but yeah, there are some times where it's just a little more fiddly than it should be to get through some of these levels from the speedrunner's perspective. Anyway, we're going to go the top path up here. This is normally a water stage, and we can skip the majority of the water the world record holder for this game found in their run, which I'm so thankful for, because I didn't mind the stage too much, but it makes it a little bit safer from the keeping rings perspective, for one, and two, it makes it way faster, because the controls underwater, especially with these hover boots here, can always be a little bit of a pain to control. I'm keeping the hover boots on just because there are a lot of areas where you do benefit, really, from that small burst of quick speed and quick height. So you'll see me using it here and there, but I, for the most part, don't actually get slowed down too much thanks to the same physics, the same speed slowdown thing that applies to the hover boots on land. Doesn't really tend to happen as much when you're in the water. It's actually, you get a really high jump from the water, you get really far boosted as a result of being in it, so it's not too bad. It's a pretty fun level as a result. So anyway, we are here in Leafland now. Effectively the same thing as the level we just came out the other side of. At least it's got a very similar feeling to Misty Maze. And effectively, I keep saying effectively, all that's going to happen now is we're just going to get into a scripted cutscene. This level is just like 2 or 3 scripted cutscenes, the level. There's not too much more to it other than that. So we'll be making our way over there, seeing what Jerem's all about. I've never had this happen before. What? That's crazy. Okay. Yeah, so we'll make our way there, and then we'll get out of here. So Jerem's got a lot to say, as does everyone in this game. A lot of dialogue is thankfully optional, especially the flavor text that's required to traverse through the game, but we'll just have to mash our way through the necessary ones. That's unfortunate that I hit that wall, because that would have been pretty clean aside from that. Yeah, this is one of the areas where there's a lot of mashing. Another one is coming up after we go underground, so to say. But until then, there's not an awful lot to say about this level. That was clean, though. I'm very happy about that. We're getting into another one of the levels I tend to put into the same category. This is Tube Trial, and its big gimmick is you're running against a gradient, effectively. So you're walking against a force that's trying to slow you down. So as you can imagine from a speedrunner's perspective, it's not exactly too ideal to be in a level where the gimmick is going slow. Whereas it's said so outright here. Some of the other levels, they're at least a bit more subtle about it. This one is just, no, you got to work against the slowness. So at least we're all going the same speed. You know, there's no speed advantage to one runner versus the other, but it's a tad slow for our liking. So we'll do our best to make the best of it. But otherwise, there is the only other thing that's worth noting in this level is that there is an area where it's very easy to fall onto the bottom path, and if you fall onto it, you can accidentally loop back to like the middle point of the level. We, of course, really don't want that to happen, so I'll be trying my best to negate it, but it can happen. So I got to be on my toes for it. Basically, is all you need to know right now. Another one of the very windy ones. This is on purpose because, you know, the more you wind, the more of these slowdown sections you can force on the player, and that's exactly the point of it. Once again, not always designed for that classic Sonic speed you know and love. That's a little bit more of the role of the fan game Sonic before and after the sequel, whereas they are perfectly traditionally classically Sonic styled. This is more of an experiment to see, hey, how do these two genres collaborate? That is not the way I wanted to go. That is a tad unfortunate. So I can get up there for silver rings, but I'm going to need to wind back round, aren't I? Okay. That's fine. Some of these areas also do look similar, which makes it even more confusing, because it looks like one of the slow sections you just ran through, but it actually might not be sometimes. It might just be copy-pasted level assets. It's a real pain. But we're pretty much out of it now. It's a level for sure. And we'll be going to the most trollish level in the entire run. Now, is it long? Is it difficult? No. Is it trollish? Very much so. So we're on the very edge of the map here. And we don't go left, we don't go right, we go right, then left to progress. This is such a common choke point for a lot of people coming back to the run, trying it for the first time. It's so simple to get lost, and then it's immediately followed by a level which is honestly not that fun to play through. So the whole gimmick here is you go through the slow snow, which is already a bit of a problem in itself, as we just established. It's already a bit of a drag as well, quite literally, but another one of the big problems is you're basically feeling around in the snow for red springs. You can't always see where the red spring is going to be, both in terms of you can't even really use the top of the level to use it as a visual reference for where the spring should be, but you also can't use the snow necessarily as well, because there's no dead giveaways in terms of visuals. So we're really just, unfortunately, filling around in the blind there. It's not ideal, but we got super lucky, and that was a very fast split there in comparison to what it can be. Yo, what's up, Paulie? How you doing? This is just a test stream at the moment, so thank you for dropping by. I am testing for a stream that's going on twitch.tv/gamesdonequick in a couple of hours' time, but just doing a basic bit of practice. But welcome. Hope you're having a good one. Fans of Shadow the Hedgehog will rejoice. Blue base zone here, and we'll run into some green orbs in a bit. We don't need to ponder them. It's very simple what they do. They boost us up and to the left. So what we'll want to really optimize here is using... Oh my god. What was that? We'll want to optimize using, in certain areas, the boost shoes. Not boost shoes. The hover boots. That's what I used to call them. We'll optimize using the hover boots to get us in the right direction at the right time, so we can use them to effectively transfer our momentum in a different direction and get to certain areas a bit faster than we're intended to. Nothing too groundbreaking, nothing massively time-saving, but certainly easier and certainly shaving off those precious couple milliseconds here and there. So we'll make our way there momentarily, but you're already seeing these guys kind of in action, and here is the rough section we want to really be using this thing. So you can see how just that little bit extra height is helping to make the section just a bit faster. So from here onwards, we will have these boots equipped, so we'll just have to live with the slightly slower running speed. And I barely missed that one. Unfortunate, I could have bounced straight into that one. But we're still doing a pretty good job of it despite that. Nearly out of the level though, and then we will... This is, as I say, slap bang in the middle of what I call the mid-game personally. Not because it's mid, some of the levels may be a bit more mid than others, but it's the mid-game just because there's no major plot progressions or Sonic ability-related progressions going on right now. So now that we're out of here, we are going back to what is the actual central hub for the game. This is where a lot of stuff happens. This is Sky Speedway Zone. We access it a lot both in the present, but more so in the past. And we'll be taking the elevator, which only existed in the past here, to get us up to the top and get us into an exclusive staff area of the Sky Empire. The overarching area that we're in the game, but also the organization that's at play, both on the good and bad side of the fight. One thing you're going to notice quite a lot is I really don't know too much about the plot of this game. The nice thing about being a speedrunner is, of course, you skip all the cutscenes and the like. You don't have to sit through them. But the drawback of that is I've never actually fully casually finished the game, and it's been probably about 8 or 9 years since I last attempted to finish it. Got very close, but didn't actually do it. No cigar and all that. So I'm not exactly the epic lore expert, but I know a lot of people hold this fan game in high regards in regards to that stuff. So if any of it just at the slightest of glances seems interesting, I strongly advise you to check it out. We're using all of the power-ups we've gained here to make it through this area. It's effectively a bit of a check to make sure you've done everything you're meant to do, otherwise you can't make it here. It's a neat tribute. I love seeing the underrated levels get love. Yeah, for sure. There's some great stuff going on. Right, so this is Groove Glow Zone. It's another platform cycle-based level. Thankfully now, though, we have these hover boots, and they're going to really help us. The one downside to them is, of course, the slow ground running speed, which we mentioned before, so I'm going to do my best to boost into slopes with them and the like, just to make things that touch faster. But we really want them equipped just to make the platform cycles a bit less of an issue. There we go, first momentum glitch proper of the run. How exciting. So we're going to be doing these small little boosts, and we'll also do some big ones here and there, both to build up speed and also to gain a bit of jump height. I thought there was a platform there. There isn't. The actual big gimmick of this level is we have this on-screen HUD, and we got to match up real light with the HUD itself, as you can see here. So we got to do this in the quickest manner possible, as you can imagine, both from it being a speed run and from just wanting to get out of this area quicker. It's not exactly one of the more fun ones. It's got to be one of my least favorites, honestly. There's a lot of areas where you got to crouch, so we'll be doing little boosts to once again offset the time we're spent crouching and doing the rest of it. There are probably optimal orders to do all of these in, but I think it's a lot of freestyling and just doing what you can where you can towards clearing the gates, because otherwise you can't get out. You're stuck in the area you're in. So I think it is just a lot of improvising, freestyling, depending on where you are, what ones you still need to clear, how long it's been taking, what area you end up in when you first get the on-screen HUD. There's so much to micromanage in this level that it's a little bit of, not just casually, but even the speedrun wise, it's just a lot to keep an eye on at one time, and it can be very slow if you flub it up, which I'm doing kind of okay at. There's another momentum glitch, by the way. So much momentum glitch going on that I actually missed the blue orb there. But thankfully, I don't think there's an awful lot more of this level to go, or at least the awful parts of this level. So, as you can see, just a lot of usage of the boost shoes here. I think it's kind of intended, but not exactly. I think you are really meant to wait around, so while it is useful in some areas, not quite as much intended, but definitely we get switched away from these in the next area, so it's pretty much guaranteed that you're not meant to be using them, and we will absolutely switch back to them the moment we can to make the same gimmick a little easier on our poor souls. So, not an awful lot more here to this level. We're just trying to make our way to the end, winding through all the twisty roads this game has to offer us, and then we'll be free to explore as we want. There we go. So, coming up now is the first proper boss fight of the game, and this does incorporate the mechanics of the level we were just into the boss fight itself. I should really hit a safety save here. I should have been hitting way more saves than I've actually been hitting. Regardless, so this is a real choke point for casual fans of the game, and it was a real choke point for speedrunners until, shoutouts to Burnsy, he ended up finding that it's super easy here to use the hover boots to, well, to play through this boss fight in a rather unintended way. So you'll see the orbs are on the ground again. There's a lot of situations where they're in really peculiar and tricky spots, and that's to make things way harder for you, make it a bit more tense for a boss fight. However, using that short bit of speed we can gain from the boots, we can make our lives far easier and can just barely reach those hard-to-reach areas and, yeah, effectively make a little bit of a joke out of this boss fight. So this one here is a particularly great example. This is so nuts to get without the shoes, so not very much not intended. Once the cutscene switches you away, it's assumed you'd forget these things existed, and well, certainly the majority of us did until Burnsy found this out as a nice little trick that we can use to not only save our bacon and avoid dying runs, which was such a common issue with these, but just to improve our quality of life, really. Put back a number of years on our life expectancy and take away the stress of not just a very challenging boss, but a very pernickety boss. There we go. We're all done. It's made way quicker as a result of this. So we are out, and we are going into a very cool level now, followed by a nice little skip. It's been a while since we've had a cool glitch arena, so let's get one going. Sky Empire City Zone here now, and this is a major hub in the past. We really only see it once in the run, though. It's relatively underused in that sense, but, well, it's going to be a memorable one for reasons. First of all, though, we've got General here, Jerem here. Why did I say General? Isn't that the guy from Sonic Battle? Anyways, we've got these boost pads, we've got a lot of springs. This level doesn't matter. What we're looking for is the next level, and the transition into it. It's gonna be nuts. So, the next level is nuts in general. It's a trippy dream sequence, which is one of the favourite things in fan games, is just those weird out-of-character moments. We're going to skip straight through it with these hover boots. So we're going to charge into this cutscene. Once we're out of it, we're going to let go. We get pushed into this wall here. We're going to make our way over to the left-hand side of this wall, and there'll be another elevator that we just stood on, which will then push us out and into the loading zone of the level. Shame we skipped the really funny, really bizarre dream sequence, but it's also an equally baffling skip to make up for it. Anyways, we're out here, and we're about to get into what is the longest set of cutscenes in the run. There is a lot of text mashing, and it's probably worth mentioning the rules of text mashing here. So we're doing a little bit of gaming RN with the Princess of the Sky Empire. So, in regards to text mashing, this game is actually really lenient. You don't need to be like a 30Hz masher to get maximum inputs. It does buffer quite a lot of them at once, so as long as you're hitting like a couple, maybe 2 or 3 times a second, which is pretty doable, or 2 or 3 times a second, maybe like 1.5 to 2 times a second, as long as you're doing that, it's really lenient. Like, I'm just kind of rolling my 2 fingers over it, kind of, I'd say about 2 times a second, and this is perfectly optimal. So, it's really not too... The reason I bring it up is it's not too demanding like a lot of RPGs where you do have to be really quick with it, you do have to mash quite hard and it can quite hurt your hands. This game's quite nice about it. Really the only killer is if you're going for 6-tap spin dashes, which you shouldn't, because the 4-tap peel out is not only faster in speed, but also is faster to execute, so this game's not too bad for hand health unless you're playing it for long periods of time. Anyway, we got sent out of the Sky Empire. We got sent to prison. That's the game doesn't quite word it like that, but we're going to word it like that. So we're here in prison with General, and this is the only time we get to play as him in the game. So we got to break out, and that's done by hitting 2 switches. And we're going to want to hit particular... what one is it? There we go. I'm using a different control layout to normal. We're going to hit a particular set of switches with both of them because it's quicker to do it this way. So we're going to take Gerald first of all to the top switch in the level, and we're going to take Sonic to the bottom one. Reason for doing this is when you finish the level, if you take Jerem all the way to the end to the exit, it will warp you back to Sonic. It doesn't just switch you to Sonic, it warps you back to Sonic's location. So you want Sonic to be in the position where he's the one who's quickest to hit the switch. Not only is he the one who hits the switch closest to the endpoint, but he's also the one to run out of there the fastest as well. So it's a little bit of dual character manipulation to make them both stand in the air as we want in order to get the fastest outcome. So we'll be doing that now. So bottom route here for Sonic, and that will leave him a little bit closer to the exit than Jerem was. Right. Nope, I still have to go down one more level, don't I? Whoops. I did this with Jerem last run by accident, so there we go. So we've activated both, that's all it took. Don't know why none of the other prisoners decided to try this thing beforehand. Feels like a little bit of an obvious escape route, if you ask me, but it doesn't sound like the Sky Empire were expecting to keep Sonic contained for too long, so They knew this would happen, and we're about to witness the military getting involved. I don't actually know if that's the plot point, but it is a little bit heavy-handed to get rid of Sonic. I'm going to mash for a save point there. And hopefully, if all goes well, I'm going to go for what is a brand new boss fight quick kill. So I might need to concentrate a bit here, but the short of it is I'm going to hit 2 of his bombs, which he drops down onto me. I'm going to slash him twice with the sword, and then I need 5 perfect hits across 2 cycles. So this, I think that might be it, unless I can... 5, okay, I might still be able to do this barely. Let's see. So we're going to aim for another hit here again, and same deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Quick kill achieved. We save on having to wait through the 3rd phase there. Nice. I don't know if I would ever intend on being that risky in the run, but that was really nice to be able to hit. There we go. So we're now transported forwards in time, and we are finally going to get our 4th power-up of the game. And we're doing so in Magnetic Mine, another one of my favourite levels here. So we'll just wait for the text boxes to go away, and then I'll show you what this level is all about. So you might see the purple haze around Sonic. That's because the gimmick of this level is the faster you go, the higher your jump, and all of the level design is built around it. The reason for that existing is it shows you that your jump height is lessened unless you're doing this, as just explained, but also it shows you that your hover boots won't work. They also have their own animation for being disabled. So yeah, we get out of this quite scot-free in comparison to what you should do, because we got this peel out here. You can actually peel out against walls, which you can't do with the spin dash because you'd be hitting the momentum glitch, unfortunately. But here we can just do a little peel out against the wall, and we can totally make it up and cheese some of these areas. So we make it way easier for ourselves than it really should be. Especially, as I say, with the spin dash, you just get perfectly stuck against walls and wouldn't be allowed to do such things. But here, no such issue. That is really unfortunate. Here, no such issue though, and we're gonna make quick work of this level as a result. Let's see if I can make this. Nope, not quite. But once again, can just stand against the wall, peel out, and make it all the way to where I need to make it. Gonna hug this wall here to be able to jump up here as quickly as possible, and there's another similar section coming up momentarily where I'll be doing the exact same thing. I say that, I completely missed it. I completely missed it again, so I'm just going to need to build up a bit of speed, basically. There we go, nearly at the end of the level here, and we're about to get one of the most finicky power-ups of all time. If you ever wanted boost in your classic Sonic game, here you go, it's the boost shoes. I'm going to need to concentrate for a second, because I'm going to need to conserve my boost. I need to use some visual cues in order to do this perfectly, because otherwise you can see what happens exactly here. I have to wait for the boost to charge back up in order to be able to clear this level. It's a bit annoying like that, but I didn't get hit too badly with the complaints. Am I cramming? This is absolutely cramming. Welcome, Larry. Just one quick run to see what my issues are going into the marathon. Anyway, welcome. So yeah, the reason I don't like this boost all that much is because it takes so long to charge up, and there's a couple levels here, only 2 luckily, where it's required, where it is super easy to run up the charge, and you've got to wait a good 30 seconds sometimes to... you got to wait a good 30 seconds sometimes, basically, to get back to the area, or to reattempt the area you're in and get back through it successfully this time. This is the second one of these, Magnetic Mine Top. This one luckily isn't as bad because you respawn with a full meter of boost. I didn't mean to hit that, but that's how strict the boost hitbox can be sometimes. So it's this area in particular. You don't want to burn all your boost, but you want to use it to get through. And you really don't want to burn all your boost because you've got a finite amount for the rest of the level now, depending on how much you use there. So it's way more tricky than it should be. In my opinion, this boost meter should charge way faster. And while it can do so a bit later, if you collect a bunch more of those boost power-ups we saw in Eggman Circus, we didn't get any more throughout the run because there's really none that are actually on the beaten path. So this is actually a slightly improved boost over what we could be having. But we're out of here. Those rocks can only be broken down with the boost shoes and one more item we get later on in the run. So we've now opened up those sorts of areas. Anyway, this level is one that we used to do in the run, and we used to do a bit of zombie hovering, if you've ever seen Wind Waker HD speed running, in order to go all the way around back to Old Castle. Nowadays, though, believe it or not, it is actually faster to play a boss fight. So we're going to charge up these... hover boots here and use it to get on top of these hexagons, and we're going to keep traveling these until we reach the top trigger to enter the Sky Empire zone, since there's currently no way up here, really. There's no... what's it called? An elevator! There's no elevator right now, so we're going to use this to get up here instead, and we're going to sequence break our way into a boss, which will then perfectly drop us into Old Castle Zone, instead of having to go around 3 or 4 levels to get there. So, as a result of that and another glitch being redesigned later on in the run, we completely miss zombie hovering, which requires a bunch of perfect inputs a second in order to be able to gain enough height to reach certain areas. I hated it. I'm not very good at mashing, whereas there are certainly a lot of people in this community who are great at it and didn't mind it. I'm not one of them, so we found luckily that both the times it was required, it was super fast to actually round them. I unfortunately missed a glitch here with the hover boots to where I could have made it into this boss fight way earlier. So I'm just going to make the best of it, and I've got to mash through 3 different text boxes here. So I'm now going to go up and above, and we're going to go into what I dub the Afterburner boss fight, because it's a shoot 'em up, featuring the Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed remix of the Afterburner theme, which absolutely slaps, of course. So we're going to want to get the maximum amount of hits in here possible, so you'll see me doing some things like trying to avoid the lasers purposefully while still getting in some hits. It's a lot of pattern recognition. And there's another thing here, this fire behind him doesn't hurt you, so you're going to want to travel along with him to get the maximum amount of hits. This guy doesn't take the same hits as the other guys do, so there's not too much in it. But yeah, there's a lot of optimization to try and get the maximum amount of hits in here to obviously avoid the worst possible scenario, which is being in here for as long as possible. This isn't the greatest of boss fights so far, but I've done a pretty good job, all in all. So now we're going to the second phase where we fight an even bigger giant motor bug. And he's got a little sore spot in his head, poor lad, and unfortunately for him, we're going to be hitting it and making it even worse. So, as you can imagine, the further the bullets travel, the longer it takes the hit to happen. So, well, we can take advantage of layering here and actually just sit right inside the hitbox. And, well, the bullets hit him instantly, so we're just going to mash, and then I'm avoiding these because these can kill me if I have 0 rings. We're just going to mash, and that takes him out and drops us immediately in Old Castle Zone, which is where we want to be to go around and get the final required power-up of the game. So once we're in here, we're going to avoid time traveling for now, as we actually want to go all the way to the right, and now we can use the boost shoes that we gained just a moment ago to make our way into Angel Terminal, which will allow us to get the final proper power-up of the game. So here we are, let's boost, and let's get out of here. I'm also going to use the boost just to make this area a little bit quicker. You might have heard the boost sound effect used sometimes in the game. That's because if you mash the X key, or you just hold it going into certain transitions, you can actually get the boost to trigger for some odd reason. You can get a small amount of boost going into each level. I have no idea what causes it, none of us do. But of course, we love it all the same. But now we got the actual boost, and it's still useful in some areas to give us short bursts of speed. But thankfully, we have no levels like the previous ones where we have to conserve boost and wait for it to recharge, because we only use it in small, quick doses from now onwards in the run. So it's pretty manageable. So this is Angel Terminal. Its whole gimmick is bumping off these bumpers that you can see here. So we're going to have to try and bump in the most optimal ways to avoid losing loads of time. And then we've got to traverse back through the level once we got the power up, a different route in order to get back out of Angel Terminal and go back the way we came. So all I'm going to do is just try and avoid the ones that I don't want to hit, because you can see what happens. I bounce in the direction I don't want to go. I'm going to try and avoid those ones and hit the ones I want to hit, and it's basically a 50-50 as to which ones make you go fast and which ones just get you stuck in place and make you go ever so slow, like those ones there. Anyways, nearly there, so I can stop moaning about these in a second, because they'll all work in my favour soon. They'll all work for me, but not yet. The power-up's quite late into this level, so nearly there. Please, I want to be able to brag about it, because it's so cool. Here we go, it's time. Here are the bumper gloves. So these take out these bumpers here, as you can see. You can also use them to charge a punch and use them to gain a load of height on these bigger ones as well. Now, if you're familiar with speedruns, you're probably familiar with the concept of patches. I mean, if you're watching this on the marathon, you know, you're obviously not watching this right now, there's a test run, but if you're watching this on the marathon, you will have seen patches in action today. Normally they make things slower for the most part in speedrunning, and they make things a little tedious because the devs go out their way to patch glitches, which make the run fast and fun. It can be a little bit of back and forth, especially in fan games and the like. This is one of the few instances, really in gaming, where a patch in a game actually makes things way faster. So you might see me doing this double jump. This double jump actually wasn't a move in the original 1.0 release of Sonic Chrono Adventure, but in order to just speed things up, I'm guessing, and make things a little bit easier for casual players, this double jump was added. It's way faster than having to charge a punch, which you'd have to do every time to take out those bumpers, so it's absolutely beneficial. Despite that, that's not what I'm talking about, what makes it faster. It's actually something else that makes it faster that we'll be showing off for you in a little bit. So I'm going to leave that a bit up in the air for now, but let's just say it's going to save us heaps of time through the ending of this run, and as such, I don't have an exact estimate for how much time the 1.1 patch of Chrono Adventure saves, but I would estimate it anywhere around 10 to 15 minutes personally. It's really that good and useful to have access to these gloves and the new abilities featured within this patch. So you can see I tried to get a quick punch there, but it doesn't always work like that, so it is absolutely beneficial to have that double jump, to be able to double jump into those smaller bumpers. But it's not only just this level that double jump is going to prove useful for, it's pretty much everything beyond this point, both in the intentional ways and, well, perhaps the devious unintentional ways too. So I am now going to switch back to the boost shoes and just do a little bit of a boost here, build up some speed, and then we're going to make it back into Angel Terminal. Well, sorry, not into Angel Terminal. We'll leave Angel Terminal and go back to Old Castle Zone, where we'll finally want to hit a time travel. The bumper gloves can also break down those, both with the double jump and just with the normal punch, so absolutely beneficial once again to have access to these things. And I'll basically, mostly, minus some required areas, be staying with them for the rest of the run now, because you're about to see why. So I'm going to hit a couple double jumps, and you're going to quickly notice that I'm going a tad faster than intended. For some reason, the speed cap isn't properly implemented with these gloves, so the more you double jump, the more speed you gain. The more speed you gain, and it is absolutely busted, completely wide open. The busted gloves, from now on, they are the busted gloves. So, not only that, the double jump also in areas where, say you got these gimmicks here, like, as mentioned, when we came through here the first time, you get extra height. Well, that also stacks with the double jump, because not only does the first jump get additional height with these gloves, the double jump gains even more height as well. So not only do you get the benefits of having two jumps, you get the benefit of each jump also having additional height. And we'll see this carrying momentum into other gimmicks coming up at the end of the game as well. They really are that good. So they make mincemeat of this level. I mentioned it's one of my favourite levels as a result. When you do it fast and proper, which that wasn't quite, unfortunately, but when you do it like that, it is gorgeous to watch. It's so free-flowing. So we're going to want to get the Polum Taxi here, and fitting that it's the Polum Taxi, because we're going to want to take it to the Sky Speedway here. back in Old Castle, there was actually an opportunity to, well, progress the game as we're intended to, and we go into an area called the Polum section. Polums are these recurring characters in the Sonic Before and After the Sequel games, and Sonic turns into one as a result of his misdeeds, and you run on walls and stuff, and you use that in order to progress. Now, what's funny is, the irony in this is we're actually going to run up in a wall in the exact same way you do through the Polum area, in order to make it to the top here. Now, once you beat the Polum area, there is actually a trigger which breaks down a wall over here, which would allow us to progress to the end of the game. By doing this, we can hover boot over said wall, and we can just make it into the trigger to begin the end game of the game with absolutely no qualms whatsoever. So this is where the bumper gloves are going to come in really handy. But all in all, that skip saves about 20-25 minutes off the run. It saves a bunch of story progression, about going through about 4 or 5 different levels, and saves 2 boss fights. It is absolutely beneficial, and also one of those boss fights is probably the slowest in the game. So it is absolutely beneficial to do that skip. And it's just the irony in that that's the mechanic they introduce, is running on those hexagons in the Polum section. We use the same mechanic to skip here. So if you've been watching, or I guess if you're a fan of other Sonic Worlds based video games, such as, of course, games in this series as well, but even newer games like Freedom Planet 1 came out the year after this, and Sonic and the Fallen Star, of course, recently used the same Sonic Worlds engine. A lot of the glitches you're seeing in this run do actually still carry into newer versions of the Sonic Worlds engine, to the point where that exact momentum glitch I showed you there, and I'll probably accidentally get hit with a lot throughout these next couple of levels due to all the hexagons you're seeing. That specific momentum glitch still works in modern versions. So, for example, in Sonic and the Fallen Star, you can absolutely run on ceilings and walls. I did it many times by accident in my casual playthrough, to the point where I nearly labbed a skip with it, but I don't think it actually ended up going anywhere. But it was really fun to see that these problems absolutely still exist, and the speed tech we use here in Chrono Adventure also works in the likes of Sonic and the Fallen Star too. So, hey, if you're seeing anything here cool that you think, wow, I run a game in this engine, it might apply, absolutely check, because we've busted this game wide open. Maybe it could be handy for your game too. I'm sure you guys have all got your own cool speed tech as well that we should absolutely look into, but yeah, certainly the transferable skills between this and other games, it's so fun to see. So, remember when I mentioned that other scripted jump height based things would also be affected? Yep, that includes these fire boosts that you've been seeing through the last 2 levels here. You get more forwards momentum as a result of having these bumper gloves equipped. There's also a water one, which we'll be seeing in the next level. Same thing, the height gets super improved. These things just... I've got a lot of respect for Lake Fepard, of course. He's a great developer. He's absolutely great at his craft. I get the feeling, though, that these were a very quick implementation, and that's perfectly fine, but for our purposes, it's amazing. So, we're just gonna see these things completely destroy these last 20-25 minutes, and we're gonna get some excellent results out of them. I love these things. I will keep going on about them for the next, because every time you think, well, maybe their usefulness is over, there's just some new busted tech that comes in and destroys this ending. So we're here in the 3rd of the 6 levels in the end game. I am going to go out my way to make a safety save here, because the next 2 levels are really unsafe and can be really damaging. For those of you not aware, if you take a death in this game, you go back to your last save point, and you get forced back to the save select screen. So we've really not been saving all that much this run. Considering this is practice for a marathon run, I really need to do that. So you get the ability to mix fire and water. Now, we all know that oil and water don't mix, but fire and water is a very different thing, apparently. Who knew? And we get increased... this is intentional. We get increased jump height as a result, and it carries us up to the top of the levels through the intended twisty, windy ceilings that are going on in here. Still get more momentum and height as a result of having these bumper gloves, don't get me wrong, but it's just fun, once again, to all the ways which we are which we are just seeing this game crumble before our eyes. And yeah, while we're not seeing too much damage with the combination of fire and water, there is still a lot of shenanigans here. I thought there was a way to cut under here. I don't think there actually is. I should have just taken this the proper way. Oh well. Shouldn't have lost me too much time anyway. I was just checking, to be honest, because I was like, wait, is there a cool route change I could do? Oh, no. No, there isn't. Now's not really the time to be implementing stuff like that anyway. Now should just be grind cramming time, as it's been worded. But, hey, cramming's how I do things. I want to be professional, you know. I've been doing this for a long while, these practice sessions, but I really just want to be professional when it comes to the real thing and not completely screw up. But I don't have an awful lot more to say about these levels, to be honest with you. They really all follow the same routine at this point until we get to level 5 of 6. But the whole aim, really, of what we're seeing from them is they're attempting to overwhelm you. So each one introduces more difficulty and slightly more things, and the whole point is there's more and more on screen that you've got to keep track of at any given time. And yeah, the whole point is more concepts introduced. The more concepts introduced, the more you're probably going to begin to struggle. And it's not difficult as much as it is just like 4 or 5 almost equivalent to flashing lights going off at any given time. And currently we're coping with it quite well, but things are about to blow up in our faces, quite literally in-game. But until then, we're just traversing through this one, which is a very water-based level, but otherwise completely similar to the original. The whole thing that's really introduced here is more of those fire-based enemies which give you the fire ability and quite often just shove you straight into spikes. So this is more a matter of ring management this level than anything. And the other thing introduced is a lot of spikes in general, which you're going to use these 2 power-ups here to try and clear or try and time to make it through them optimally, or just a tool. That helps. There's a couple shortcuts as well you can take to avoid some, go through some to gain a bit of speed, etc. There's a lot of varying tactics, and a lot of tactics used just to bring the difficulty without necessarily making things unfair, but certainly bringing on that expected bit of dread you'd have from the end of, well, quite literally dread from a Metroidvania. That was not intentional, but anyways, yeah. Still just more negotiation with all these spikes and enemies. You can just see how many of the things are crawling around this level. But things are about to get really interesting. But until then, all we've got to do is just continue our way around. There we go. I told you it would happen at some point in this run. I just got hit with with the ceiling. I got hit with the ceiling momentum. Not the momentum glitch. This is too much speed, too much momentum, unlike the one I complained about earlier in the run, so you win some, you lose some, don't you? Nearly there, though. This one's just really long, and as you can see, there's not much diverging change, so it's quite always difficult to find things to talk about that are different during it. Another one of those fire boosts made so simple. As a result of all the extra speed you can see, not perhaps intentional, but here we go at the end of the level, and we are about to see the fan game do the fan game thing that ever fan gamed. Because, well, we're here in the darkness, and if we'd gone through the Pylum section, we would have seen the past villain, whose name is Dr. Chrono, basically swallow the Sky Empire whole. That's what this whole weird background visual is, but now we're here, and it's time to fully begin to take down the darkness. This is Metronic, an alternate form for Sonic, who, well, his name actually is derived from the original name for this game. It was going to be called Metronic. He's got a couple abilities which we'll be seeing here. The first is the ability to press down and Z to perform a quick dodge. You'll get these screen flashes which will damage you unless you're blocking for them in time. So the most optimal way is to block in such a way to where you can move again the quickest as possible, because you're completely frozen in place until the dodge finishes. So the best way to hear for these sort of things is sound cues. The visual cues, well, you can use them in a bit of internal counting. Sound cues that I'm listening out for here are the absolute best way to ensure that you're going to do this. The risk-reward of this is really quite high normally, so I am actually playing it very safe here since this is marathon practice, but normally I'd absolutely try and get the most optimal block so I can begin moving again as soon as possible. Another feature we won't be seeing as much, really, until a bit later on is Metronic also has this cool finger gun thing going on. Think almost Inteleon, except it's with, I guess, like dark energy or something edgy. I mean, this guy's basically even edgier than Dark Supersonic, so it's going to take a lot of beating to beat that. But yeah, he's got a cool finger gun thing going on, which I love, and we're going to be making great use of at the end of the run. But for the most part, it doesn't appear too much here, but we might use it here and there just for some small areas. But otherwise, as you can see, the overwhelm continues because we've got all the gimmicks that have been introduced in the first 4 levels, and we got Medtronic, as well as trying to avoid these timer-based events, such as the screen flashes. There's also a couple of cycles you can get, you can hit, as you can see here from these spikes. There are also some optional areas which can speed up or slow you down, which you can go through depending on if you reach them in time to have the screen flash take them out. There's quite a few in particular in the second level. I'm just going to make a run for it, even though I'm going to take the damage, because this will plonk me straight into the second part of the level. So once again, I'm going to make a safety save here when I get the chance, even though it might be a little bit slow, just because practice. Okay, so the new gimmick introduced here is you're going to want to block to avoid these energy electric boogloos. I don't know what to call them. And then once you block for them, you avoid hitting them, and therefore you can gain access through the opening shutters, and you can move on. There's a lot of these throughout the level, as well as everything else in the previous levels. So this is thankfully the final one, but this is the ultimate test of everything you've learnt so far. We can avoid that one screen flash, thankfully, as a result of being normal Sonic here. And yeah, you can see the difference in jump height and how far I'm being propelled as normal Sonic there, since I wasn't going to take the time to switch back to the bumper gloves. There was one of those sections I was mentioning where if you get the screen flash over there, you can actually go down and around it. I unfortunately was a little bit too cowardly to hit it. That was really lucky. That I was expecting to get hit there and have to do some ring juggling. So there, you can see there I got a little too greedy, and you can see what happens when you fail such a timing window. So not the most ideal of situations, but once again, a lot of this is just damage control. How risky you're feeling like being, how much damage you feel like taking, how many rings you have on you at any time in order to do this the most optimally. So not exactly the best version of this I've ever seen. You know, you could optimize this, for example, to if you got hit quick enough, you could do the dodge the second you got to the area you needed to dodge in anyway, for example. You can damage boost through these. These sometimes actually have a habit of insta-killing you, which is really fun, as you can imagine, but otherwise, yeah, it really is a little tricky. Okay, nice. And this is the worst of it. We are pretty much through the worst of it now, though, so I think I'm just going to need to do one more dodge, and then I can make it out of here, and the end game sequence will be done. Right, can I make this without dodging? No, but I will take the damage, honestly, because I think I can juggle that ring. There we go. Bam! Completed. So now we're going to be let back out into the Sky Empire. Another area will open up as a result of having hit all the endgame triggers. And we could actually mostly avoid the bumper gloves. There's no technical in-game check for them, and you could perfectly not use them. I said how quick I think it could be, but skipping them could also save a lot of time. There is only one physical area stopping you getting out. Not because it's purposely trying to block you from sequence breaking, but I just assumed they assumed that you'd have them by this point. It's that area right there. So we're now gonna do a little jump. I messed it up. Okay, we're going to do a little jump, and we are going to make our way into the final level of the game, and this is probably flat out my favourite. You're going to see here a lot of cool visual effects. You're going to see a lot of cool jumps and momentum exploits and stuff like that just make this level a real treat to finish the run with. So let's go ahead and do it. So Dark City here, I would have one last opportunity to take a fire shield if you wanted one. However, I way prefer, some runners prefer doing this with Bushu, some prefer the fire shield. I prefer this with my beloved bumper gloves, because you should hopefully see that platform cycles barely become an issue with this thing, both because of the speed and the small little jump boosts we can do. Unfortunately, I just missed that one, but otherwise we were doing pretty well. Yeah, there's just a lot of improvisation in this game. You get to see actual spheres without the sphere glitch in full action. You get this really cool on-screen filter and the the whole wavy effect going on. It's just beautiful, and this really signifies the creativity and the artistic creativity as well that you get from Sonic fan games, and you'd never see something like this in an official game, but I think it's beautiful all the same, and I think just, wow, I wasn't expecting to actually pull through those. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. There's just a lot of, down to the movement as well, and all the custom power-ups and the story of it. There's just a lot of beauty in this level that reminds me of why I really love Sonic fan games. So yeah, this one's a really great one for me, and a super fitting way to end the run with all of these rotating objects as well. So much fun to traverse and boost off of in the perfect ways. Not actual boost, not with our boost power up, but certainly just jump off in the perfect way, get that right height, get that right speed, and just go crazy, basically. Right, I missed that, but I should be fine. Actually, this should be beneficial. I think I'm good. As long as I am fine in the final boss, I think that's actually beneficial. So we're gonna get the first part of the final boss here. Uh-oh. That was going well. So I'm going to get the first pass of the final boss here. And this is another area where, yet again, the bumper gloves are super duper handy. So you're going to see me do some double hits on him here. So I'm going to do all the double hits, and that will take him out. Then what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to take maximum damage. So we're going to want to just sit through this phase here and take some damage. And we're going to want to die on purpose. And I'm going to do what is a new quick kill that I discovered. This might be very quick to see, so I'm going to explain it now while I got all this downtime, because I won't be able to do anything else. So we want to take a death, so I switch automatically to Metronic. As Metronic, I'm going to want to run all the way to the right of the screen before this white fade out happens. I'm going to want to jump, use my finger weapon to hit his round shield you can see here. That will allow me to hit him. I then activate the Rodalia trigger, which you can with up and A. That will change me back to normal Sonic. Once normal Sonic, I'm then going to use the bumper gloves to lodge myself in his hitbox and get a load of hits. This is like super concentrate time, so give me a moment, but I'll try my best. Okay, here we go. So I want to aim roughly for his left boot, and once I am in his hitbox, I want to do a double jump, and that gets me a load of height. Okay, come on. Please, 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 please. I think that's barely slower than world record with retiming. I think that's barely slower than world record. Oh my god. 1:11:50. Can someone check that for me? I think that's like 20 seconds off world record. I'm not stopping my own personal timer since we're retiming, so I don't know what his record will end up being with retiming. But I think that's like 20 seconds off record. We need to retime his because the timing method is changing. In fact, has already changed for new runs, but old ones are being retimed, but I think that's nearly record. Oh my god. Speedrun.com/SCA is where you can find the leaderboard for this. Can you check what like 1:11:50 is against his one, please? If anyone's got a moment. If not, it's absolutely no worries. Holy shit, 1:12:44. Oh my goodness. Okay. So not quite. Maybe with retiming, possibly, because I also started my own timer a little bit late. That's definitely PB, though. Who expected that? Oh. Pulled it out the bag. I achieved the bag. That was so unexpected. Right, well, how's that for practice? Jesus. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to let the credits run out just to... There's no rule for credits required to verify it, but I'm going to leave them to run out anyway, just in case. So yeah, for those of you watching this who have no clue what's going on, follow twitch.tv/GamesDoneQuick. There's currently a marathon ongoing right now called Sonic and the Shiny Things. I'll be on that at about 10:30 PM UK time. and that's where this run's going to be taking place. Or the proper version of the run. It might not be a world record, but I'll try my best. Original Sopnik games, by the way. So go and catch it over there. That's where the real big deal is going to be happening. There's like 1,000 people watching right now. I am bricking it, but it's going to be a great time. So go follow them. Keep up to date with the schedule, which they'll have linked somewhere. I'm going to go and get this run all up to date on speedrun.com. You know, upload it, highlight it, the rest of it. See, retime it against the final time. But that was goated with the sauce. My god, I'm nearly at world record time. I'm nearly back! It's the king of Chrono. Let's fucking go. Oh, I'm coming for my throne. Watch yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. I'll be back with you soon. Peace.